taking responsibility for my trading. Something that I think a lot of people out there that day trade don't do. They don't take responsibility for when they make mistakes, and not just mistakes, but make real choices that then affect their P&L. Talking about this idea of taking responsibility, people, we're going to take responsibility right here in this video, so make sure you stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Patrick here. Today, we're talking responsibility, right? Day trading responsibility. So many times when people lose money in the market, they create all these different reasons for why they lost money. Reasons like, oh, the indicator didn't work, my broker froze. The market's rigged. The market's rigged. That's my favorite one. There's so many people out there that blame the market for being rigged for the reason that they end up losing money. And well, today we're talking about responsibility. Yesterday, I made a choice, right? I personally, as a trader, made the choice to enter a trade when I knew, number one, that I should not enter. Number two, I had just taken profit from a very similar trade at a resistance level that I knew, number one, was resistance. And I still did it. Right now, obviously, I wouldn't say I'm upset. I'm more so mad, right? Like, I'm mad at myself for making a terrible choice and going against the plan, going against my overall thesis, going against everything that I knew I shouldn't do. I went against it, right? Like, I broke the rules and I paid the price. And this is very important for me to now sit here and understand that, again, I'm taking responsibility, but I'm also letting myself realize that if I make a choice that I go against the plan, I enter a trade that I shouldn't be entering, this is what's going to happen. If I break the rules, I'm going to then get this, which is like 1 + 1 = 2. And that's exactly what trading is. A lot of people think that trading is, you have to exactly know which way the market's going to go. You have to, be able to predict the future. But what trading really comes down to is controlling your emotions and then not entering trades when you know you shouldn't enter the trade. If you look here at the chart on the SPY that I was trading on Friday, you can see we had a huge move up. We pulled back. At this point, I enter in this area here, which is a good trade, right? We have an overall kind of bullish thesis. We break to the upside. We have this huge engulfing candle. But what do we know? What is something that is so apparent, right? If we get rid of all of these candles there, what is something that's so apparent? That the 450-50 area is resistance, right? Like, we know that. There is no argument at this point that we can say, like, well, maybe the resistance won't be there. Maybe it's not going to, well, no. There is resistance at that 450-50 area, and it's pretty clear to see that it was previously support turned into resistance now multiple times, getting touched there at that 450-50 area. So I'm going into the trade knowing, number one, that if this pushes up to 450-50 and then breaks out to the upside, obviously it'll be bullish and it'll go higher. But I do know that if this breaks the upside and then it gets stuck at that resistance, what should I do? I should, number one, take profit. And what's funny is I ended up taking profit up here into this push, seeing that we were having trouble, seeing that we weren't pushing above that 450 area. I identified that resistance and I told myself, like, okay, I'm going to get out of the trade. I'm going to take my profit from this level here up to here. I was able to lock in almost $300 in profit. I made $300 in profit off of this trade right here, off of this push up to the 450 area, seeing that resistance was there. I identified the setup. I saw we were bullish. We pushed above the EMAs. Everything was looking very, 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 very bullish at this point, right? We had the pullback, an overall bullish pullback, a little bit of consolidation, and then getting ready for that next leg higher. Now, obviously, if the market did push above that resistance, I would be feeling a little bit different. I'd probably making a video like, wow, I made so much money today. But this is such a good lesson for you guys and a lesson for me. And again, this is why I make videos. I make videos showing the good. I make videos showing the bad, because this is trading, right? You go through it. You go through the emotions. You go through the process. I'm mad at myself. I'm taking responsibility for myself making a poor choice, making a bad choice, right? So what happens? How did I end up losing so much money? The market pushes up to the 450 area. What do? I take profit on that trade. Woo, I'm up $300. Cool. it then pulls back. And I'm like, well, look, it's kind of pulling back. It's kind of bouncing here. It looks like it's going to push to the upside, which is fine, right? Like, I can take a trade on this if I want to. If I want to take a trade, I can take a trade. But what do I also identify? I talked about in the video on Friday. What do I identify? The low on this candle was 449.48. So 449.50 was the kind of that area that I was watching. If that area could not hold, what do I do? What should I do, Patrick? I should get out, because guess what? This is now going to break to the downside. I can see that we got resistance here. We have support here. If we can't break above that resistance, well, there's a very good chance that we pull back. And guess what happened? We ended up pulling back. So if I would have gotten out of the trade here at the 49.50 area, I probably would have gotten out for like $100 in profit off of that last trade. So on the day, I would have been up $100 if I would have just gotten out right then. But instead, I changed my game plan. I'm like, okay, whatever. We break below 449. That's fine. The next support is down here at 449. I could hold through this, right? Like, I could hold. So at this point, we drop from 449.50. Guess what? Look at this 15-minute candle here. Wick above that resistance or above that support. And I've talked about this strategy before where, when a 15-minute candle closes below the previous candle, that's something that's bearish, or vice versa. If it's going up, then that's bullish. But in general, like this, everything about this setup right here, like literally everything about it was bearish at this point, breaking below that 449.50. I identified 449.50 as support. So at that point, it should have been just like done. I'm done. I'm out of that trade. But instead, I became emotional and I was like, no, I think the market's going to rip higher because, if you look at the other days, like we had some insane rips at the end of the day here on the SPY. And that's one thing that I tell people, like whatever happened yesterday or the day before or the week before, it doesn't matter, right? Every single day is a new day in the market. Every single day is a new setup. Every single day is a new day to make money. So if I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, yesterday it spiked up at the end of the day. So I now have that in my head. So at this point, I'm like, well, screw it. I can hold because if it breaks below 449, it's still, there's support down here at the 448 area. Totally fine. I'm like, okay, it's going to pull back 448 and then it's going to go to 452 by the end of the day, right? Like that's what's going to happen. So pretty much I break the rule by not getting out at my stop at the 449.50. I then say like, I'm going to hold through 449. Well, guess what? Now 449 breaks and then we go all the way down here to 440, I think 447. So in this area. So at this point, I end up getting out for a major loss. I give back all my profit and then I take a $600 loss on this trade. And it's like, why? Like, why did I do this? And I did exactly what I should not do. And that is, not that I don't know how to trade. Like, I think, at the end of the day, like most people know how to trade. Like you buy low, you sell high, you have a pretty good idea of how to trade. But the idea is, can you control your emotions? Like I had a good trade here. I made money. At that point, I should have just waited for this resistance here at the 450 area. If it was going to break and there's bullish, the market's going to go higher, I can just wait for that setup to come. Because if we go from 450 to 452, there is so much profit to be made off of that trade. But if I jump in here hoping and praying that this is going to go higher and it crashes down, well, now I'm just giving back money for no reason. And that's exactly what I did. And here again, like as we go lower, I didn't cut off my loser. I did not follow the plan. I didn't follow the overall setup. And that's one thing that's so important is taking responsibility and being like, hey, look, I was wrong. The trade was wrong. It didn't work out. I'm okay. I'm taking a loss. I'm walking away, not with a massive loss. I'm just walking away with a loss. But instead, I broke the rules. I did everything I wasn't supposed to do, and I paid the price by having a massive loss, losing pretty much all the profit that I made for the week, giving that all back, which is something that you do not want to do. Like you can't give up 4 days of profit on one day because you're never going to move forward. Like you're going to take 4 steps forward and then 20 steps back. And that's pretty much exactly what I did today. And again, like I want you guys to see how passionate about this is, like how much, like I want myself, like I'm trying to really focus here and look at this and like remind myself. So in the future, when a setup comes and something like this happens and I'm like, okay, Patrick, you could enter the trade here. But you remember the last time that you entered a trade when you identified there was resistance, when you had a good trade, like, I made money, it pushed up, I made money. Boom. Why did I get out though? Why did I get out of that trade? I got out because of the resistance. So why would I enter another trade right after that, thinking that it was just going to break through that resistance. Like, what a terrible trade that was. What a terrible plan. And then, to change my overall plan. So I'm, in. I then change my stop. I then change my stop again. I changed my stop basically 2 times. And then I end up getting for a massive loss. And that's such a terrible, terrible way to trade. And I paid the price. Like, I'm 100% honest here with you guys. I paid the price. I take responsibility for making a bad trade, for making a bad choice. And I need to focus here and remember that the next time that I have an opportunity to make a bad trade, that I remember this moment right here, this freaking moment right here, like this emotion that I have, like, not that I'm like still emotional, like, oh my God, I lost so much money, I'm so sad, but I'm angry with myself because I put in the work, I did what I needed to do all week long, and then I did something so stupid like this and gave it all back. Right? Like, I woke up every morning, 3 a.m. I did my job. I did what I needed to do. I followed the plan. I made it. I got to that point. And then to give it all back so like just to give all that work back, like, that's why I'm angry. I'm angry with myself. I'm angry with my emotions. I'm angry with the overall way that I handled today being Friday, and then obviously today's Saturday. But when you're watching this video, it's Saturday. I'm making this video on Friday. But in general, guys, understanding that the biggest enemy for yourself as a day trader is yourself, right? Like, you are your biggest enemy when it comes to trading. It's not the charts. It's not the brokers. It's not the market. It's not that the market's rigged. It's simply being able to control your emotions, being able to stop yourself from taking a bad trade. I've got nothing wrong. Like I said, if I would have got stopped out at the 449.50 here, that would have been fine. Like, hey, not that it was a good trade, but I still, like, I got in, I got out. But instead, I waited, I hoped. Then at this point, I'm just hoping and praying. I'm basically crossing my fingers that this trade is going to work out at that point. And that's a terrible, terrible way to trade. So taking responsibility, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm taking responsibility for my mistakes. I made a mistake. I paid the price. And now the only thing I can do is prepare for next week. And again, remind myself, like, this right here, what happened today, losing $1,000, the only reason that happened is because I chose to take a trade. I chose to not cut off the trade. I chose to hope and to pray when I know, like, come on, like, I know, if anybody out there knows, like, that is just not how you trade. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm taking responsibility. Are you taking responsibility? Are the mistakes that you're making, are you taking responsibility for the mistakes? Are you taking responsibility for your actions as a trader? Ask yourself that. And then that emotion that you have when you lose, like, remember that the next time you're about to make a bad trade, like the next time that you're about to not follow the rules, tell yourself, like, hey, you remember the last time you did this? It wasn't good. You weren't happy afterwards, right? Like, you weren't happy. And obviously there's going to be days where you're going to take a trade and it's just you're going to get lucky and it's going to work out. And then you're going to kind of, almost like have this false sense that, like, oh, well, I took a trade one time and it worked out. Like, maybe I'll try it again. And it's just not going to work long-term. So that's why I'm so passionate right now. And that's why I'm kind of really fired up, because I'm just angry. I'm angry at myself, and I need to make sure that the next time I have a choice of not, cutting off a trade or, breaking through a stop loss, things like that, like, I need to remember, like, this is exactly why we don't do that. Like, we follow the plan, we follow the rules, we take the profit, we cut off the losers, and we survive to fight the next day. Taking responsibility, baby. Taking responsibility for my own actions.